Hey guys, welcome back, welcome back. How you doing? I hope you're enjoying all the videos. This video is a little different. I don't think I've ever really talked about anything like this in my 8 years of doing YouTube. But for some reason, I've been thinking heavily about people that I've lost, and especially from cancer, MS, lupus, other autoimmune diseases, and things like that, even suicide. So bear with me as I get my message out and talk to you guys about it, because it's part of my healing. It's part of what I'm going through. It's part of what my life is, and what made me who I am today. I also have some stuff I'm going to discuss with you guys afterwards that has come up in my life that also spurred on these thoughts and these memories and why I'm doing this video. So again, bear with me as I get my bearings. I'm not talking to a doctor. I'm not talking to a friend. I'm talking to a camera. Anyhow, so I want to talk to you guys a little bit about cancer and other illnesses and loss. How many of you guys out there have lost someone to cancer or MS or lupus or some type of autoimmune? If that's the case, then you definitely found this video. I'm going to give you a little backstory and of my life and some of the losses that I've had, and then I'm going to tell you what's going on. So where do I begin? One of the first losses that I remember is my Aunt Shannon. I remember this lady who was just spunky, outgoing, smiling all the time, always family-oriented, always took care of the whole party and the scene, and took care of the family. And I remember that growing up, because we used to get together all the time with our big families, and Christmas times, Easter, Thanksgiving, we'd have these big feasts, and all of our cousins and everybody would be running around, So I remember my Aunt Shannon going from a spunky person, and then I remember her being in a wheelchair. Now, at the time, I didn't know what she suffered from. I just knew that she was sick. And when she passed away, I found out later that she had died from MS. So, of course, I didn't know what MS was back then. Of course, I do now, because I've spent years in research trying to figure it out for not only myself and what's going on in my body, but also to understand how to deal with it. So I remember that still. I still remember my Aunt Shannon being in that wheelchair. And I still remember when we found out. So that was one of my first losses. So we fast forward. I want to say it was August of 2003. I had found out that my mother was very, very sick. Now, she was an alcoholic. She lived in Las Vegas, Nevada, and she lived on the streets, and she did day labor and stuff like that, but she just drank herself to oblivion. I remember going as a runaway out to Las Vegas when I was about 13 years old. I ran away, and I went out there to live with her. And I remember her going into a grocery store once, and she was gone for forever, And next thing you know, she's coming out of the store, right? And she went in sober. But by the time she walked out, she was so messed up that she stumbled, she tripped, and she fell on her face. And I remember her glasses broke, and she kind of stumbled, and me and my friend had to, literally walk her home. But I found out later, of course, that she had gone into the store, snuck a bottle of vodka into her purse, and was walking around just drinking it. I mean, a huge bottle of vodka. So that was my mother. My brother and my sister didn't like her. They didn't want anything to do with her. And even though she had abused us all, and to some extreme things of abuse I won't even name here, I still loved her. I still wanted to be with my mother. So, of course, I was around her. One day I got a phone call saying that she was very, very sick, and that the doctors had told her, if you have one more drink, you will die. She kept winding up in the hospital, and then they'd release her. She'd start drinking again. and so on. Now, this went on for so long that I just got used to it, used to getting the calls or saying that she went to the hospital again, or, she got into a fight with her boyfriend. I remember fights. They'd lose the vodka bottle or they'd lose money. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night, walking down in the hallway, and my mom and her boyfriend were fighting in the hallway naked over where they hid the bottle. I mean, it was that bad. So, of course, here I am hanging out with her. I was living with her, and time went on, and I finally got that phone call saying that if she drank anymore, she would die. So, of course, I got on a Greyhound bus, and I went out to Las Vegas, and I found her on the streets. And I told her that I wanted her to come home with me for at least a week and, get sober. So she agreed, and I remember us riding a Greyhound bus back to Tucson, and we spent a whole week together. And I remember my brother showed up during that week, and he didn't know my mom was there, and he saw her, and he flipped out, and he left. So that was basically where it was left with my brother. He got arrested and went to jail and all that stuff, after that. But after the week was over, she was pretty sober, and I thought she was okay. So, of course, she had to go back to Las Vegas to be with her boyfriend and work and all that. She was homeless. I mean, she did day labor, to survive. And I know all about that, too. So anyway, so I get her back on the Greyhound. She goes back to Las Vegas. And I'd say a couple weeks went by after that. And I remember it was August 1st, 2003, that I got a phone call from my sister. Now, my sister, mind you, hates my mom. I didn't think she was even talking to her or knew about her, what she was doing, where she was. But yet I still received this phone call from my sister. When I answered the phone, she was hysterical. And at first I thought maybe something happened to my dad, because she was really close with my dad. So I was like, what's going on? And she's like, oh my God, Mom is dead. She died. And I was like, what? So I found out what happened. I guess she wound up right back in the hospital. She'd started drinking again, and her heart just stopped. I found out later from the doctor she had pulmonary heart disease and cirrhosis of the liver. Forgive me, my throat's a little scratchy today. Maybe it's because I'm talking about this stuff. Anyhow, so I got the call saying that my mom had passed away. I went out to Las Vegas. My grandmother in California, her mom, decided she was going to pay for the ashes, and so I went out there and I picked up her ashes. When I got back to Tucson, I wanted to meet up with my family and stuff so we could spread her ashes, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen for about 2 to 3 years, that we couldn't get the whole family together. And so time had gone on. Next thing you know it, a couple years, maybe 3 or 4 years go by. It had to have been like 2008, now that I think about it. My grandmother passed away. Now, my grandmother was my rock. She was the person I cried to. She's the one I laid on. I would spend hours massaging her feet and talking to her, And she was very sick. And I just remember, like, all these medications that she was on. And, lots of medications. She had had problems with her gallbladder. And next thing you know, she went in for gallbladder surgery. Next thing you know, she had blood clots and high blood pressure. Then I found out after she passed that she had lupus. So all these things are going on, right? And she passed away. I just was told that she called the ambulance, and then the ambulance showed up and she had passed peacefully. So now we have 2 people in my life that have passed away. And soon after that, after my grandmother passed away, we all got together finally, and we were able to spread my mom and my grandmother's ashes. We took it up to Young over by Salt River, and all of us in the family all got together. And I remember I just had Sally. So I just had Jake about a year before, and I just had Sally. And we all got together, and I remember standing on a corner of a cliff with a handful of my mom's ashes. My sister, my brother, and I were all laughing, and I remember my dad telling us that he will never forget that moment because he's never seen us that close. laughing and having a good old time together, which never happens. So, anyhow, I just remember having this handful of ashes, and I was laughing, and I just wasn't paying attention, and I just went to throw it, right? Well, I slipped. And as I went to fall over the cliff, something literally pushed me back. And I landed back on my butt. And in shock, I was just sitting there. And as I realized that I didn't go over the cliff, I just started laughing. And I knew at that moment that it had to have been my grandmother or my mom that stopped me from going over that cliff. I'll never forget that cliff. So that had happened. So we finally spread my grandmother and my mom's ashes. So here we are, many years later. I want to say 2013. I found out that my dad was sick. He thought it was melanoma cancer, and he tried to tell us all these things, and I didn't believe him. Well, in the meantime of hearing about my dad's illness, my aunt was also getting sick. And I remember her telling me that she went to the hospital one day. And she had this knot in her stomach, and it was painful. And she said, I went in, and next thing you know, I guess the doctors had told her that they found cancer in her ovaries. But what they told her as well was that it was already at stage 4. When she found out she had cancer, it was already stage 4 ovarian cancer. So mind you, we're all in shock. And she did their first thing that they recommended, which was chemo. Now, in my research for cancer, and especially for ovarian, the expectancy is 5 years. And my aunt went through the chemo, she went into remission, and it came back again. And I remember in 2018, I got a phone call saying that she was in the hospital. She was in a lot of pain. They had a tube in her stomach, and they didn't know how much longer she would have. So, of course, I went down to the hospital, and I sat with her. And sure enough, a few days later, I got a phone call saying that she'd passed away peacefully. Well, she wasn't really peaceful. She was in a lot of pain. I remember sitting with her and her crying. My aunt never cried. So that was a little rough. And for those of you guys that don't know, I do believe that people who suffer, especially like my aunt and my grandmother and my mom, I would rather see them gone than suffering. So for me, when I lose people, I might cry for a little while, but I would rather see them not suffering anymore. So I send them peace, and I pray. I still talk to them to this day, as if they're in the room. Sometimes I smell them, or I'll hear their giggles. So yes, in 2018, my aunt died from ovarian cancer. Moving on, a couple years go by. I want to say 2019, probably around 2019. I got a phone call saying that my dad was in the hospital. Now, mind you, my dad hated doctors. He was running 106 fever once, and I told him, you need to go to the hospital. He goes, I've got my doctor right here, and that's called my wife. And no matter what, I could never get my dad to go to the hospital when he was sick. I could never talk him into getting to the doctors. And so it was very difficult to hear that my dad had actually asked to go to the hospital. I just remember when I found out, I got in the car and I went to Phoenix because they had taken him up to Phoenix. That's where he was living. He was in a Phoenix hospital. And when I got there, I walked into the room where he was at, and I didn't even recognize him. He is a 6'3", 200-pound man at least, and he looked horrible. He had lost so much weight that you could see his bones. He looked so frail and white and pale, and I just remember seeing the look on his face when he saw me walk in. And gave me that little smile and those baby blue eyes. And I sat there and I listened to the doctors. The doctors came in and basically told him that they had found out that his sodium levels were so low and depleted, and that he was very, very sick, and that they found cancer in his lungs. He was an avid smoker, a heavy drinker. He didn't drink like my mother with vodka, but he drank beer, all the time, every day. And I for sure thought that he had cirrhosis. He didn't have that. It was lung cancer. The one thing that I remember is that they walked in and they said, it's not just cancer, it's stage 4. He didn't know he had cancer. He had no idea that he was sick until he took himself to the hospital. And so hearing this stage 4 cancer was kind of like hearing it with my aunt. By the time they found it, it was stage 4. Unlike my aunt, though, ovarian cancer has an expectancy of 5 years. And even though she had stage 4, she still made it to 5 years. On the other hand, with my father, they told him straight up that he had 2 months to live if he did chemo. Now, my dad, I guess, had some bad experiences with chemo before with other family members, his father and grandfather, I think. And I remember him telling that, but I also remember the look on his face when they told him that he had to have chemo, because he cried, and my dad never cries. So he forbid to do chemo, and he said, I want to go home, I'll do hospice, whatever. And that's exactly what we did. We set him up with hospice, and we let him go home. I remember going out to the house and sitting by his bedside for a little while. I just know that he said that he wanted to make it until he was 65 years old so he could say that he hit, retirement age. And I thought that was kind of cool. Just so you guys know, my dad lasted about 5 months without chemo. And the last time I remember sitting with him, I was sitting next to the bed, talking to him, and he had this look on his face. He had his dad look, the dad that I remember, and being grown up and older, and wiser. And he would just talk to me, and then all of a sudden it was like he switched. His whole face, demeanor, everything switched. All of a sudden you could see those baby blue eyes just light up, as if he saw my mom, And he was like this little innocent child. And then he would switch back to good old dad. Now, I remember him telling me all the time he couldn't wait until he could go to heaven so he could see my mom. My mom was his one true love, and they had a bad relationship, and he had to let her go. And I remember him saying that he just gave her truck and let her leave. So, of course, and that was when we were babies, really, really little. So my dad loved my mother, really, really loved my mother. And because my mother had passed away, I guess maybe he was going in through those hallucinations when he looked at me, because he had this glow on his face. And then he would switch, and then he was back and forth. Well, I would say about 10 days after his 65th birthday, I got a phone call from my aunt saying that he had passed away. So I lost my father soon after that, but at least I got to sit with him and say goodbye. And I didn't get to have that opportunity with some of my other family members, so I've lost my mother, my aunt, my grandmother, my father. I've lost people to suicide. I've lost people to accidents. And it's part of life. It's part of learning, and it's part of living. You don't come into this world without going back out. And that is just, like I said, that is life. So for those of you guys that have lost someone to cancer, I'm going to send you a big hug. I'm going to send you prayer. And I'm going to send you just understanding and compassion and patience. And just know that when someone is suffering, whether you know about it or whether they don't, just you being there and just you understanding the situation as a whole and what you can do to help them through it, it's the little things that count. Because you never know when someone's going to be gone. You never know when that last phone call is going to come saying that it's too late and they're gone. I guess that's the simplest way I can put it. So we have to be grateful for every moment we have with each other. And we have got to start telling each other how much we love each other. And we got to start supporting each other and uplifting each other now, because The world's gone crazy. If you guys haven't noticed, even the weather has been so extreme that it's like no one has ever seen anything like this. We've got wars going on all over the place. We've got fighting. We've got our communities going like hatred. We've got drugs going rampant. We've got people violent and killing each other. We've got kids who are committing suicide because of bullying and God knows what else. And trauma. Trauma. We got food shortages. We've got bad weather. I mean, that's just a few things that I know about. So, I guess in a way I'm doing this video as a shout out to everyone to stop fighting. Start loving. Start accepting your life in the way it is and accept your flaws, accept your downfalls, accept your misjudgment. Stop bashing people. Stop hating on people. Stop yelling at people. Stop fighting each other. You never know what someone's going through. You never know when you're going to see them again. You're never going to know anything. Really. So we have to cherish every moment, right? See, I'm starting to get emotional. I'm starting to like, bleh. Diarrhea of the mouth is what I call it sometimes. Even though I mean well, sometimes I get mixed up in my own mind because there is something I really want to say and it doesn't come out right. How many of you guys can relate to that? I think I'm getting jumbled up because I'm getting emotional. I miss my family, but I'm glad that they're not suffering. I miss my family. They're not with me. I've lost that ability to be a mother. And I live with that all the time. People always say, you should let it go and move on. How can you let it go of your family? How can you let go of your children? How can you let go of suffering unless you work through it? You have to be patient with yourself. You have to be kind to yourself. You have to learn to love yourself for who you are, the good, bad, and ugly. Hasn't been easy for me to accept all of who I am, even when I get upset. I'm more mad at myself for being upset than you are for me being upset. Okay? I get home and I'm mad at myself for not being able to calm down. I come home and I get mad at myself for not saying something right. I get mad at myself because someone wants to hate on me and I didn't even do anything to hurt you. So I come home and then I'm mad at myself. Like, what did I do? We've got to stop doing that. We've got to stop hating each other. We've got to stop fighting. That's all I can say. It's just, you never know when a life is going to be gone. You never know when a relationship will end. Or a job ending. Or how about the loss of your home? Or how about all the money that you've had and it's just gone one day? What are you going to do then? You're going to sit there and just mope? Or you're going to get up and do something about it, right? If you get that phone call tomorrow saying that someone died, are you just going to sit there and be depressed and cry about it all the time? Or are you going to accept it, that that is life, and that hopefully you'll see a different side of it and say at least they're not suffering? It's the only way I've been able to look at life. It's like, at least they're not suffering. So make each day count. Hug that person. Call that person. Tell them you're sorry. Forgive them. And then let it go. I work on that every single day. It's like, I forgive you. I forgive me. I let it go. And then it comes back. But you know what? It's an everyday thing. Nobody's perfect. What I'm getting at now is we have to love each other. We have to uphold each other. We have to uplift each other. We have to encourage each other to keep moving forward no matter what, because this world is gone mad. There's hate and violence and crime going on everywhere. And pretty soon, we're all going to be without a place to live because we can't afford it. Because we can't afford our food. We might have to rely on Mother Nature again. I talk about all the weeds that I'm pulling and how much medicine is in it and how much food is out there, and we're just throwing it in the garbage. Well, did you forget that Mother Nature provided all this for our ancestors, and we still have enough out there? So maybe you should start looking at options to food and housing and, helping each other out. I went to the doctor recently, and I found a lump in my breast, and they did a mammogram and an ultrasound, and they found something, and it's pretty small, but it's enough to cause me concern, enough to go and, get it looked at. So I went and saw a breast specialist, and they started me on evening Primrose. I also found out that my prolactin level is still really elevated, way above normal, and which has caused a growth in my brain. I've had at least 3 strokes. I've had ischemic disease, neuropathy. I've got fibromyalgia, degenerative disc, all these things going on. And instead of getting messed up on medications and doing all the pain management and stuff again, I've been learning how to make my own medicine, my own pain rubs, my own lotions, and trying to find alternatives to my own health. My prolactin levels have been elevated for a while now, and the first thing I learned was Vitex. You know what Vitex is? It's a tree that blooms these pretty flowers, and inside those flowers is medicine. That medicine of that Vitex tree, which is in front of my friend John's house, actually reduces prolactin levels. The doctors had never even heard of it. So I think I just enlightened this doctor. She enlightened me on a medicine, and then I enlightened her on a medicine that's holistic. You see what I'm saying? We have to rely on Mother Nature. So I'm scheduled to have a mammogram done. Not a mammogram. Now they're sending me for an MRI. So I'll keep you guys posted on it. But my cancer screen came up at a 13 as far as the levels go. Now, when I found out that I had the 13 or whatever it was on their level for the cancer screen, they said, well, we don't worry about it until it gets up in the 20s. And every time I hear that or I think about it, it brings me back to my family, my aunt and my dad. All of a sudden, they went from being normal human beings, healthy and, not even seeming to be sick, to all of a sudden, stage 4. You've got 2 months to 5 years to live. I'm not going to be that statistic. I'm not going to be that person. So, of course, I'm following up with my doctors. I'm keeping up with it, but I'm not really worried. You know what I mean? As far as I'm concerned, if something were to happen to me, at least I'd be with my mom and my dad and my grandma and my aunt and all the people that I've lost. And how about my stepdaughter, even Madeline, who committed suicide? I mean, that is the way I see life. People live in fear, and the fear is what kills us. The stress, even though people say stress will kill you, I learned in my book in school that stress is actually a motivator. It motivates you to reach out to people. It motivates you to get up off your butt. I just ended a relationship, an 8-year relationship that just ended like 3 weeks ago, right? And here I am, I'm feeling like crap. I want to quit smoking and all this stuff, right? Well, during our breakup, he had a carton of my cigarettes, right? And he had some other things, my hygiene and stuff, and he wouldn't give it back to me. And here I am, 2,500 miles away, and I just looked at him. I told myself, I'm not going to fight with this guy anymore. I'm going to quit smoking. That's it. I'm done. It was my motivator. I know I remember walking down the street for 30 minutes to find this nearest store, right? Now in New York, cigarette pack was $13. And I said, damn, man, I'm not going to buy any more cigarettes after this. So I bought that last pack of cigarettes. I sat there. I figured out my way to get back home. It took me 4 days to get home. But you know what? I did it on my own. I relied on myself. And I said, I'm not buying any more cigarettes. I'm done. Here we are 3 weeks later. I'm smoking on my little e-cigarette. Okay, this has like 5 milligrams of tobacco. but it doesn't have all that extra stuff. And it's been 3 weeks. My lungs are loving me for it. And I'm very proud of myself. I've cut off everything. Like literally cut off everything. And I feel pretty good. I mean, I'm losing more weight. There's something going on within my body. I've been checked for autoimmune before. I'm trying to get checked for lupus because my grandmother had it. My aunt died from MS. And I still think that that could be an underlying reason. But no matter how many diagnoses they give you, it's all in your mindset. It's in how you see it. If you think you're going to die, you probably will die. So get that out of your head. Even if you're sick right now and you're listening to this video going, man, this lady's crazy. Who cares? Be crazy. Go out and do something you haven't done before. Call that person that you hate so much and tell them how much you love them. You know, it's as simple as that. Enjoy your life right now. Not for tomorrow, not for money, not for fame, not for anything else. Do it for you. If you haven't taken that dance class that you wanted to do, go learn. Go take that class. If you want to hike Mount Everest, then start training today and go do it. If you want to travel across the world or walk across the world, then go do it. I've decided that I'm going to be taking a break from my life here in Tucson, and I'm going to be traveling for a little bit. I'm going to go up to San Diego to start, probably at the beginning of this next month. I've already made plans for it, and I'm a little nervous because I've never done anything like this before on my own, not without my kids or, doing spontaneous trips, which I used to do all the time. But I also realized that back then when I used to take these random trips with my daughter and just go to out of town for a weekend or something like that, I had the most fun I've ever had in my life by being spontaneous, by just doing. And now I'm just rambling, so that is what I wanted to talk to you guys about. I wanted to share a little bit about my loss and my grief because I've been thinking about my family a lot. I don't know about you guys, but I believe in signs and synchronicities. And I've been seeing my dad's number 88 race car everywhere. I see CTI, which is a company he worked for 14, 15 years. I see that everywhere. It's kind of like signs for my dad. And then I hear Las Vegas all the time. And that makes me think of my mom. And lately I've been hearing San Diego. Well, my grandmother lives in San Diego. I have a friend out there in San Diego. So now I'm being guided to go to San Diego. Maybe my grandmother's not going to last very much longer. I don't know. But I'm tired of sitting here and procrastinating my life. I'm not going to let a doctor or cancer diagnosis or any other things get in the way of that and my happiness, We can't let the fear override us. And a lot of people are living in fear. It's very, very sad. If we ran out of food tomorrow, I think everybody would just panic and start fighting and maybe want to kill each other for the last bit of bread on the shelf. It's like the toilet paper when the pandemic happened. First thing I did was I learned how to make toilet paper at home. When the sterilizing, the hand sanitizers and stuff ran out, I remembered what my grandma taught me, which was vinegar. You know what I mean? When I started doing landscaping, everything I find now, I look it up, like, what can I use this for food and medicine? Well, we might need it. You might need to go back to your roots. Take off your shoes, go run in the dirt. When it rains next time, do me a favor, go outside and dance and play in the rain. If you have any vices, drop them now if you can. It's as simple as that. I'm going to leave this video right here, and I hope that you enjoyed it and that you got some inspiration from it. And maybe you can tell me a little bit about your story. Maybe you can leave me a comment below, and tell me how you got through your losses and how many people you lost to cancer. Just tell me about yourself. And you can also email me at helpingthegoodpeople.tucson@yahoo.com. Okay? You can find me on Facebook. I have all my groups there of everything I'm doing, including Helping the Good People, Sacred Sunday Circles, And now my Grief Looks Good on You group. You can find it all there on Facebook. So thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, and share if you dare. And have a beautiful and wonderful day. And don't forget, don't let fear or anything bring you down. And if you do, remind yourself of who you are, where you've been, and how you got through it before. Okay? Your life's not over yet. It's just beginning. Remember to be the light in someone's darkness. Your suffering is not for you. It's to help someone else through it. I really believe that.